Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. We've done the normal battles. It is now time to do the boss battles. And one stage is type neutral. They're both AoE focused, so your AoE characters will be very useful here. But one of them is type neutral, so I mean, you could do any team build that you want as long as it's within 5 turns. The second battle is very much tuned towards a schemer team. But today, in this video, we're going to be focusing on Boss Battle 1. Currently rank 5, I'm fine with it. I'm going to be rank 1 in my group, and that's where all the crystals are. I really don't care about anything else. But if you look at the scores, like, yeah, I could go higher. I probably need dupes and rocks and Diablo, though. I don't know what these guys are running. But the stage itself is fairly straightforward. Ranga gives people damage buffs on that side. Benimaru gives his own damage buffs, and then Shuna nerfs oranges and blues, so good luck, and then lowers your pierce power, crit damage, and Aegis power by 100%. So if you do any of these at any point in the fight, you will do like 1 damage. So you really don't want to hit those natural 2%, and they really don't want you to build anything else besides a synergy team. And then for I think one turn, she changes everything to oranges, which, you know, if you're running a protector that can change every orb, it's not that big a deal. But if you don't have one of those, it can be a big deal. Otherwise, it's fairly simple. The starting hand is either a triple orb steal in the first slot, or a double orb change from blue to greens. You could do whichever you prefer. Like, if you have the Diablo, you can steal, or you can just use Laplace to change the 2 and blues into greens, or whatever units you're using to do whatever you need to do. Isis would work here as well, the free-to-play one from fucking first anniversary. A green buff and an orb change. Yeah, if that's what you need, then she's got it. But type neutral means that there are a lot of different options. I'm not being able to show all of them, but there are multiple different team builds. So I'm just going to put it in the front this time. If you have a team that you found that works, that gets a reasonable score, and I don't use it in this video, please put it down in the comments, and other people can try and replicate that instead. But let's go ahead and jump in with the first team, which is the Schemer team. Alright, so my current best run right now, which is still quite a bit lower than some of the other whales, but we are running the meta, Soe, Laplace, Lumi, Diablo, and SOUKA, and our 5th slot is Blanc to help Diablo just nuke even harder. It does work very well. We are still, playing into the sword gimmick, and because this is an AoE fight, we can get an absurd number of hits, like way more than we could do in beatdown battle, because that was only 1 person we were hitting, and now we're hitting 3 people 4 times with each orb, and it really stacks that counter up. But Soe does have a hard cap on how much attack you can get every turn for all your hits, so it's not like you're benefiting from that. I mean, we were already maxing out versus 1 person, so the fact that we're hitting 3 is just now extra damage. But we're actually not going to use the Orb Steal turn 1. We're using the skill point units to allow us to Orb Change and then use the sword gimmick to get the green buff going. But I intentionally want to try and get as much gauge for SOUKA quickly, because when we start stealing with Diablo, I mean, SOUKA's not really going to have that many orbs. So we want to kind of balance it out, because I do want to nuke with her. And I do have her like fully rocked up at level 120, and I do want to make use of that. So we're going to just kind of play the first 2 turns and get whatever kind of orbs we can for SOUKA, because once we start stealing and she has an ult, we're only guaranteed 1 orb for her. And that's really going to cut into how much gauge she's going to get. So having her start with more than Diablo is much more viable, in my opinion. But we've used the follow-up orbs, we've used the multi-hit. We don't need to use anything for Blanc right now. We'll use Soe, get that full hand. SOUKA getting the rainbow is actually really good for us, because that'll just give her a little bit extra. And then multi-hit. It's 83, 110, 134 hits. See how many we're getting just off this? 158. We're already in the rainbow color. And this is just kind of wild, because we're just doing so many hits. The higher number you go, it really doesn't matter. Once you hit 150, it might increase your damage like a tiny bit, but it does kind of have a soft cap, and then it's really based on your attack stat, and that's what's going to really increase the damage at that point. We're going to use the Souka buff again, and now we're going to start stealing. The Souka buff now, that way it's active for the rest of the fight, because it's turn 3, we only have 2 more turns. So it just means we don't have to use it again. But this gets us very close to the Souka ult. Not quite there, which is kind of unfortunate, because I kind of want to ult full power with her. But this run maybe wasn't the best. Like, if we had gotten that little tiny bit of extra ult gauge, if Souka had one more orb on turn 2 or something, then we would have been fine. But here, we are going to use the Blanc buff, we are going to steal, and then we could either leave Souka up front and get her the EX ult, but miss the physical buff that Blanc is giving, or we could send her away. And I think I send her away, and I just have to deal with not having it. But let's find out. No, it looks like a lever. Okay. I mean, that's fine too. So Diablo is the big-time AoE nuker. He's got that personal buff. He's going to have the Blanc damage buff. Souka will do pretty good damage here, and will now have the EX ult. But I could come back and optimize this run a little bit better, and she could have the EX ult when we nuke, and I could send her away this turn, and also hold on to the physical buff. So that's something I could do in the next coming days while Jubilee is still active. And I'm not so pressed for time on getting these videos out. But we do have 150 points. We have exactly enough. We've already used the big-time Blanc buff, so let's use the Lumi and the Souka buff, because it'll hit Diablo. We're going to use the Blanc buff as well, the orb buff. And that, unfortunately, does not give us enough points to use both the follow-ups and the Diablo buff. We had to sacrifice the follow-up orbs from Laplace because we didn't have enough points last turn to use everything, the steal and the big time skill cost, and still have enough points here. So we're going to have to forego the follow-up orbs. We still have the multi-hit though. We did use that last turn with Lumi, and now we're going to be fairly buffed. And so it'd be even better maybe if we had the Blanc EX ult instead of Laplace up here, but oh well. Souka does 2.3 million, Diablo does 10 million a hit, and then, you know, he's doing just a butt ton of damage. This is type neutral, so the damage does look a little bit lower and not as impressive. And if you crit or synergy or Aegis any of those hits, whether it be the main or the multi-hit parts, you're going to do less. And then the swords come in and do 200 million damage, well, 180 million damage, which is wild. So that is my current best run, and it can still be a bit more optimized as well, so I could get another probably 20 million out of this or something. But that is my best run with my best setup so far. Alright, the next team is going to be the Frieren team. Yes, oranges are nerfed, but we're going to just brute force our way through that by using Raphael for the protection gauge buff and Blanc for her just generic 70% increase. We're running Himmel with the protection gauge on orange charm. We've got Fern and Violet to make sure that Frieren can do as much damage as possible. And then Frieren obviously is our AoE nuking character. Now this is not a fantastic run, but it is a run if you are lacking the Schemer team and you just need something to use. It can get the job done. So starting out, you could do a number of things. Like, you could just send the 4 greens and call it a day. If you've got the protection gauge traits, you can kind of make up for the lack of gauge increase that we're getting here. Or you could try and triple orb steal with Raphael into 6 for Frieren, but a lot of them, most of them would be nerfed, like this. So we would have 1 green, and then nerf blues and nerf oranges, which is not great. We're getting extra protection gauge on the oranges, but it's not outclassing the orb nerf that we have from the enemy. But we're going to do it anyways, because it gets us some kind of gauge increase for Frieren, and that's the most important thing. Once we do the Blanc buff, it becomes not as much of an issue, because I think the debuff is 80% and Blanc is buffing for 70%, so we're only down 10% on the gauges for oranges, which is fine. More so, the RNG comes on turn 2 because you need 3 oranges, because you don't have enough points, technically, to do what I'm doing here and use the Raphael steal again, because we have to use the Blanc buff for oranges and get the 40 skill points, so we could use the Unleash Magic state now, so that it activates on the nuke turn. And that's just going to give us a little bit extra power there. Lowers their element resistance, gives us an attack buff, which is cool. And then because we have the 3 orbs, then we can use Himmel and because we have the traits, we were able to get protection gauge. And this will get us, it'll get us somewhere at least. Now that we have the 70% gauge increase from Blanc, it looks a little bit nicer. We took Frieren out, that way we could steal orbs with Raphael this turn instead. And looks pretty good. We're going to change, and we got lucky with that next incoming orb being 1, a Raphael, and 2, orange. So take Blanc out, bring that in, use the steal, boom. Now we have a full hand of buffed Frieren orbs. That's going to get her the EX ult, which is kind of why I wanted to give her that extra little ult gauge burst at the beginning, even though a lot of the orbs were nerfed. And now that she has an EX ult, we'll just kind of go ahead and buff her twice here. Once with Fern and once with Violet. That way we don't have as much to use on the nuke turn. So convert there. So Fern and Violet buff. Frieren does not have a magic buff, which is why I brought Violet. Frieren doesn't have the magic buff. So that's why Violet's here. Fern has a magic buff, but it's a personal buff. So it's not very useful, especially if she has no ult. So go ahead and reapply the gauge increase from Blanc because it's run out. The 40 skill points, is cool, but let's go ahead and steal. And then we can convert with Himmel and we can get a full 6-hand. This will get us the EX ult for Raphael, which, is cool, but not a damage-focused ult. But at least Raphael will be kind of buffed up on the nuke turn. Obviously, it would be better if we had a Fern EX ult, but the way that we're playing this doesn't really lend to that. So, hit, and another hit. And now we've got 300 points. This is the nuke turn. The Unleashed Magic state kicks in. And now we're going to do a little bit extra damage versus everybody. Frieren is half buffed in the back, and then we can bring her in. We'll leave Raphael in, and we can actually bring Blanc in for her EX ult, or her normal ult. And she'll do some damage. Not incredible damage, but some damage. But let's do the Fern debuff. And then we're going to skip the Raphael buff, and we're going to use the Blanc buff, because that's more impactful, and it's going to help Blanc do a lot of damage too. So, Blanc debuff, Frieren buff, synergy rate, 120% ult damage, one more stack of Himmel, and then we'll send all 3 ults plus this entire hand of now orange, and we'll be looking okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We actually should have sent Blanc last, but oh well. 325k, terrible. Blanc, normal ult, 1.7 million, except over there. 10 million for Frieren. And then, yeah, Blanc did 100,000 on that orb versus that. So, yeah. It's a run. And we get some cheeky counters, too, because I have a counterattack build on her jacket. Definitely a run. Not 220 million like the meta team, but it's an S rank. And it's a team that people might have, maybe, not Raphael, but Frieren, and you can just bring a different triple orb stealer in that case, because we didn't use the Raphael buff at all, so we were really only using it for the orb steal and the protection gauge increase for the orange orbs. Alright, continuing the trend of brute forcing oranges, Warrior's Mind 2.0. Recent team, people probably have it. Shuna, Violet, Blanc. We're going to bring Divine General Diablo for the synergy buff. If you have Soka, that'll work too. The Masked Hero we brought for the rewind. You can't crit this stage, so that skill is useless. But the rewind will help us get the EX ults safely. And then we've brought Gobwa, who, again, we can't pierce this fight either. So her big time skill isn't that useful. Her element down and weakness down, only half of it applies the element down because we're type neutral. So actually, realistically, you're probably better off bringing some other AoE character that can be buffed up instead of Gobwa and just running with that instead. So definitely changes you could make to this team, but this is what I ran, so this is what I'm going to show. So turn 1, we're starting with 36 skill points, that way we could rainbow convert. We're going to use the 0 cost green buff because that'll hit the rainbows as well. We'll bring Blanc in for the hero. Now we'll use the rainbow since everyone is Primal Demon. And then we'll bring in Gobwa for Violet. That way she gets the 2 rainbow orbs. And because of the green buff, we're actually going to get 2 ults here for Gobwa and Blanc. And that is intentional because we're going to use the rewind on turn 2. Send these ults and then hopefully get the EX ults on the rewind without having to ult swap because we don't have an ult swapping character here. So we'll bring the hero in for Diablo. We don't need to use his green buff anymore. That was only useful turn 1, because we're going to use the Blanc orange buff now, which will help a lot more for the rainbows. And then convert with Shuna. Boom, that gives us the full hand right there. Okay, cool. We can do it twice, actually, and that would give us 4 rainbows and 2 ults. So we might as well. And it saves us from having to use the rainbow convert from Violet right now, and we could use it maybe next turn, or the turn after, depending on what you want to do. But there's the orange buff, 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't quite get us the Goblet EX ult, but if we send everything, it gets us enough. And then the rewind turn will be free from ults, and you could just use Shuna or something, and that will then get us that last little bit that we're missing from both of their gauges. Because, yeah, Blanc just needs barely an orb, and then Goblin needs a few. We only get 1, but because we're going to send a full hand of rainbows now, and with the Blanc buff, we can actually get the EX ult for Goblet off of this one single orb. Even though she's not Primal Demon, or Schemer, or Antagonist, we can use Shuna to then churn it to a rainbow. So we have, yet again, a 6-hand of rainbows. And we get both the EX ults here. And it's only turn 2, technically. So, working pretty well. And now here's, like, if you don't have Goblet, you could bring some other AoE Primal Demon character, it's like Space Primal Demon Diablo or something, and you could probably benefit a bit more. Because you'd have 2 AoE characters, and it might just help your damage. Goblet would benefit from that Dark Resistance down debuff that Blanc has, but it's not really that important. And we have now a bunch of points that we're just gonna use here. So synergy buff on the 2 ladies in the back now, that way we can hold on to it, and we have 2 more turns to essentially build back up. We're not going to use the control stacks until the next turn, turn 4, because they only last for 2 turns, and I don't want to use it twice because that'd just be expensive, and we're not getting anything out of the actual control because we're not type advantage, so weakness strike means nothing. But I do want that debuff enhancement, and I want that ult resistance down on the nuke turn. So we're going to use the control stacks here, and then just continue to burn the turn away. And that will allow us to have maximum skill points, the control stacks will be active for the nuke turn, and then the only thing we have to actually use on turn 5 is one of the Goblet debuff stacks, and then the big time Blanc skill, because we can't use the hero crit, because that'll nerf our damage, and that's pretty much it. And we can't use the Pierce from Goblet either, because that will again nerf our damage. What I could have done here to make it a little better on this turn is I could have used Diablo's multi-skill, and I actually, on turn 5, could use 2 of the Goblet debuffs, so 2 people could have the element down, but I didn't realize that I had enough points until I was done. So, if you're running this team, I would use the Diablo multi-skill and the green buff here before swapping him out. And because we're not really using much skill points here, I mean, we're going to use 105, but we still have 75 points left over, and what the hell do we do with them? We have nothing to do with it. So we could have used, yeah, another, maybe not 2, but another enemy could have had those debuffs applied, and that would be okay. But we don't, so, oh well, whatever. If you want to optimize the run, then that's what you're going to want to do. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Goblet does 3.9 million, Blanc does 4.2 across the board, and it's a fairly good score for a brute force orange / rainbow team where 2 of the characters aren't contributing that much in terms of raw damage output, but it's an option for you, and people probably summon for Warrior's Mind 2.0, and they probably have the old Space Masked hero, so good luck if this which is you're using. Alright, well, it's a green team. There are multiple enemies, so you get a lot of alt gauge very quickly. And, yeah, Divine General. So, the hero, I mean, we're going to miss the rewind, yeah, but we don't need the Pierce power. So we brought Yom instead, so we could have another orb changer, which will help us out. And then Diablo, Gazel, Raphael, and Blanc. If you don't have Blanc, you could bring somebody else instead. She is just another single target nuking character, but if without her, you're only gonna have like Raphael as a true damage dealer. But Raphael also is the stacking character because he's got the synergy and alt damage. This is not a perfect team by any means, but it's certainly a team that can work and can get you an alternate score and then you just don't have to do it. But it does require some RNG, as Divine General normally does. We're going to go very quickly through it because it takes forever. But turn 1, we can just use Yom and then the green buff from Diablo, and then we have a full hand of greens, which is great. And then we can use the 1 stack of Raphael for the synergy and alt damage. And we're going to bring Blanc in for the 3 slots so she can get as much alt gauge. The Enamor effect from Elmesia, 25% alt gauge per enemy it's applied to, so we're going to get 75% alt gauge every turn that it's activated for whoever's in the front line. So that means that we don't really need to worry about having or not having EX alts because it's very easy to get them. So we'll use the green buff again, and then we'll start orb changing with Gazel. It's important that you actually have to orb change a lot with him, because otherwise you're not really going to get to the skill point cap within the first couple of turns, because this is meant to orb change and rewind and go to turn 8. So the fact that we're cutting our turn short means that we do have to orb change a bit, but turn 1 we wouldn't be able to do that, so we have to use Yom. Or you could bring somebody else and just use Gazel and send 5 green orbs turn 1, which is what we've normally done for Divine General anyways. So, this hand is pretty bad. Turn that, but we've got alts now, and so that drops us down to 3 orbs that we need to convert, which again is kind of a benefit to us. So we'll take Blanc out. She's got the EX alt now. She's done. We're going to get the EX alt for Raphael on this turn. Not from sending these 2 orbs, but from getting the the Enamor effect on 3 enemies. So we're going to be looking good. So multi-skill, stack, and then 2 more orb changes with Gazel. And then whatever other points that we have, we're going to force into Raphael stacks. And then that's pretty much it. So orb change, stack, and then we've got how many points left over? Nothing. Alright, so let's go ahead and send it. This is going to get us the EX alt for Diablo, the EX alt for Raphael, and an alt for Gazel, I think, or very close to. Yeah, an alt. So there we go. So Raphael is ready to go. We can send him away, or we could use the green buff for Diablo, use it, and then bring Blanc in, use the alt swap, and then we can pretty much just do whatever we want. So what are we doing here? So yeah, green buff and then a stack with Raph, because why not? And then we'll swap Diablo away. We're going to nuke with him because he is an AoE character. He'll have 3 of the buffs, all 3 buffs that we're going to apply on the next turn as well. So he will just be additional damage. It won't be a lot because he's a support alt, and his weakness strike stack means nothing. But hey, it's better than nothing. So Elmesia reset again, which actually might not have been the best use case, because sending 5 greens and the Gazel alt does not actually get us a stack of Elmesia for the nuke turn, which means we can't reset, which means we're missing, I think, 2 stacks from Roth at the very, very end. Kind of unfortunate, but oh well. It is what it is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Max points, though, but we are just a hair shy for the Elmesia gauge. So, we are ready to nuke, though. We have 3 EX alts with our primary characters. Gazel having an alt here does not matter. He's going away. Yom never saw the front line again, essentially, after his orb change turn 1. So, he's debatable on if you actually need to bring him, or you want to bring some other damage buffer that can apply something to Raphael and Blanc in the back or something. But alt buff, synergy buff, darken space buff, boom. And then we have 3 Blanc orbs, which is great. That's our best case scenario right there. So 400k, 2.7 million, 2.6 million, and some orbs. So it works. It's kind of meh. Actually, it's pretty meh. But it is an option for you in case you don't have the Frieren or the Warriors Mind team and you played during the 3rd inning and took a break or something. But there's an alt team, and I've got one more for you. Alright, and the final team I have for you today is going to be Exalted Champions. Fairly old, not going to be a very good score, but since it's so old and the team was very popular for a long time, you probably have elements of it that you could kind of run. We took out Milim because she's just not useful here. Single target, and her weakness strike means nothing. Her ult damage, I mean, is cool, but whatever. So Velzard, Veldora, Rimuru, Visions of Coleus Violet for the magic buff, and then we're going to nuke AoEs with the hero and Guy, who can give the synergy buff. The hero has the Orb Steal, which we're not going to use until the final turn, but the AoE attack, which will do some damage when she's fully buffed up on the nuke turn. It does make sense when you see it. Just, you have to remember that it's not going to be the biggest damage in the world. So here, we're just going to use Veldora's Orb Change and call it a day, because he can do that, because we're going to save the Orb Steal with the hero until the final turn. So we'll bring the hero in, we'll bring Guy in. We don't really need to worry about ult gauge, because Guy will ult rush the hero and himself, and technically Violet. But we don't need to worry about that. And we can lower the synergy resistance a couple of times with him as well, just so we can do some extra little bit of damage. Rimuru with the attack buff and the rainbow ult swap means that we can get back a lot of points. So let's rush here. Okay, cool. We'll bring Veldora in for Violet and use the green buff. That way we can continue to cycle Velzard efficiently. And then we'll bring Rimuru in, so that next turn, when we have the ults, we can just Rainbow Convert. And maybe alt rush again, just to get that extra synergy resistance down. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I don't think it really matters who you're sending. We're all type neutral here. 110. So, yeah, the hero is slightly stronger. Okay, sure. Whatever. But turn 3, it doesn't really matter what the hand looks like, because we're going to get around it anyways. And here, we can start buffing and sending these two away, because we have the points for it, and we are going to make them our primary nukers. So let us synergy buff and attack buff, and then rainbow ult swap. Technically, we don't actually have to use a synergy buff here. We could just save it for the last turn because we have plenty of points, but we're going to use it anyways. And then we'll do another stack of synergy resistance down, and then we'll just send both of them away. That way they can hold on to the synergy and the attack buff from Rimuru, and then we can bring them back on the nuke turn. And then whatever we get here for turn 3 and turn 4, we're just going to send and not really worry about it. So Rimuru is the strongest character because he has the synergy and the magic buff, so we're going to send him last for maximum power. And then turn 4, whatever you get is whatever you get. It doesn't matter. Just send it. Use Velzard and send it. We technically don't even need the green buff from Veldora active at this point because we're not using any skills, and we're going to only use one stack of Velzard, and we're going to make it back. And we already have one in reserve, so we don't need to spend any excess points here. So Rimuru ult, I mean, technically we probably even could have saved that for the nuke turn as well, and that would have helped us, but details. If you want to try and optimize it like that, you certainly can. But now the nuke turn is here. We've got a decent hand of orbs. More importantly, we have an orb for everybody. That's the important thing. Like, it's always the worst feeling when you're ready to nuke and one character just doesn't have anything. And it's like, that's the character you need to go away. So Guy will come in for Veldora. We'll bring the hero in for Rimuru. And then we'll use the magic buff, the Orb Steal, the AoE, and then you see we still have so many points left over. Like, we could have just not used the synergy buff until now and it would have been fine. But let's use it again because we can just reapply it to Violet. And then Velzard, full hand. So now we've got full AoE orbs minus the Violet ults. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Violet does 257. Guy does 559. The hero does 581. And then 3 AoE orbs. Add some decent damage to us. So, was it like, 200k right there? That's fine when our score is fairly low. But there is the Exalted Champions team as another alternative for you. Again, if you have found any other teams that work in specific team builds, please put it down in the comments. That way other people can see it. But that's it from me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.